fine example of a pike caught on one of the dead baits which has been sprayed. I sprayed that one with the red. That was the red Amino Bait Spray. And this beautiful little pike couldn't resist it. We'll slip this one back, see if we can get another one. So the leaves are off the trees, temperature is dropping. To me that means one thing, and that's pike fishing. Today I'm out on the Somerset levels and I'm on a lake. I've had one small pike already, hoping for some bigger ones. But what we are going to talk about today is about a new bait spray and dye from DNA Baits. And I'm going to show you a few ways of using it, and some ways that you may not think of using it as well. So some unique ways of using it as well. And it's definitely given me a good edge in my pike fishing for the last 12 months, and also a lot of the other anglers as well who've been field testing it. So fingers crossed, we'll catch a few more today. Okay, so there we go. Proof is in the pudding, as they say. We got another pike on the bank. Now, where we're fishing today, it's actually a carp lake, and it's really, really muddy today. The carp are still on the munch. It's not dropped cold enough yet, and the clarity is nearly zero. You couldn't lure fish or anything today very effectively. But with the bait sprays, which have been sprayed over the dead baits, that's given out that amino scent, that amino trail, and that's what the pike use to home in on their prey. They pick up on those scent signals. So I don't think if we hadn't have had that sprayed on our baits today, we could have really struggled for a bite at all. So it just goes to show the importance of using those on hard, tough days, as well as the days when they're a little bit more eager to feed. So here it is. We've got the fantastic new DNA Apex Predator range Amino Bait Spray. Now this is quite different from a lot of the other in oils and glugs and predator things on the market. Actually, it's unique because it's much more soluble. As you can see, it's much more liquidy. The other ones are quite gloopy, and they're much thicker oil as well, which just doesn't disperse well enough in the water. So that's one of the main differences. We've also got 3 different colours in the range. So we've got the red here. It's a really deep, rich cherry red to it. And then we've got the yellow, and then we've got one of my favourites, actually, believe it or not, it's actually the clear as well, because it's got lots of different usages, the clear. So I use that for fly fishing, and I use that also on small perch lures as well. These also very different from a lot of the oils on the market, is that they're actually specially blended, and they've got lots of amino acids and organic compounds in them, and it's something which DNA have been working on for the last few years, and we've been field testing them over the last couple of years as well, and we've had some fantastic results as well. How I first started testing it, rather than putting it on all of my baits and putting them out there, and it wasn't a fair test. So what I did is I would fish like for like rods with like for like baits, but I would have one in sometimes the clear, sometimes the red, sometimes the yellow, and I would say it was roughly about an extra 50% increase in pickups and takes compared to the rod, which wasn't actually sprayed or injected. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you a few ways of what I do with the spray, and also how I use it in different situations as well. So I'm going to show you them now. Now we get onto the application of the sprays. There's various ways of doing it. There's a few different things I do when I actually prepare the bait. So you can see this one. This is a bait I've actually had on today, and it's done a lot of casts. I've had it hooked through the nose. I've been sinking jaw, wobbling it back underneath the float. You can see the difference there between those 2 dead rod there. Quite a difference. Some days they might want it natural. If they did, I would just give that a spray with the clear natural one. And then other days it's just a bit of red in there, which is obviously a predatory colour and a predatory attack colour. It's the same as if I was lure fishing. Some days they want a natural lure, some days they want a bright lure, and also coloured water as well. It can make a difference that way. So, you know, there's quite a difference there between those 2 smelts. And again, these could be for ledgering or hard on the bottom, or they can be, like I've been using today to cover the water, they can be for float fish bait. So you can see that. And then that side I've just left it half. So it still gives a little bit of flash rather than totally red. But there's quite a difference between those two baits there. And what I can't get through to you on the camera is the actual smell. It's a really kind of pungent smell. It's very hard to put words to, but all I know is that predators definitely love it. And if we look at that, so we got 3 different smelt there, and you can see you've got the yellow spray, the red, and the clear there. So one bait, but you're actually having 3 different colours, so that's giving you 3 different options there. And then obviously it's giving out all the amino smells as well, and all the amino acids which are in there as well. And it's definitely going to give you an edge against the angler next to you. We've spoken a little bit about dead baits there, and now this is something a bit different. I do not lots, but enough fly fishing each year, and I'm always looking for something to give me an edge. Now when I first got these sprays, it was instantly the first thing I actually thought of, and that was to use them on the fly, because on the fly you get an awful lot of follows. And I thought, okay, if they're following because they visually see it and they can pick up on the vibrations. But if there's actually an amino acid there, something which triggers a pike to attack coming out of that fly, then for me I thought, okay, yeah, that's got to be worth a go. So what I do is, sometimes I do it on the bank, but quite often I do them the night before or a couple of days before, and I actually spray all over, and then I just leave them to dry. And they absolutely stink, you know. I think one thing about these sprays is our hands are always picking up, you know, whether we've been to the petrol station, they're picking up scent there, whether we're picking up sandwiches and we're eating things like that. We've always got scent on our hands. We've always got that human smell on our hands. And I often think about that in all different types of my fishing. And I always used to, when I was dead baiting, I used to kind of rub the trace wire and rub bits and pieces just to try and alleviate, get rid of that scent as much as I could. Whereas now I've got a spray which is so pungent and so strong, especially the clear one, I can just a few squirts and I just know that I've masked all of that human scent on there. And you know, when I've been fly fishing over the last kind of 18 months using these, I've had numerous big pike topped off by a 34-pound fish. It definitely didn't put that pike off. So like I said, I quite often spray these up on the bank or the day before. Application wise, I'd probably give about 3 or 4 good squirts on each side, and then just leave them to dry. And I'd imagine that's about right. It certainly smells enough when I'm continually to cast and strip the lure back through the water. It still smells for many hours and many casts. So it seems to be about the right amount for me to use when I'm using it on the fly. Now what I'll do is I'll show you how I actually spray it onto the dead baits, and then we'll have a look at that now. When I put the spray actually onto the dead baits, I do 2 things. Some I have to do on the bank because I might be going through the dead baits quite quickly and I might not have sprayed up the night before, or I do spray some up the night before when they're defrosted. I find it works best when they're defrosted, and then you can refreeze them again, and it really locks that flavour and that colour into them, okay? If I was on the bank, what I would do, I take a bag, because otherwise it will literally stain your hands, your clothing. It is that strong, okay? You've got to be very careful of it. I take a dead bait, take the spray, give it a good shake, the spray. You don't see it separate by the naked eye, but there's so many different amino acids in there that you've got to give it a shake just to spread it all around evenly, okay? If you try and spray it on its side or upside down, it won't work properly, because you've got to have the bottom of the spout of the spray needs to be at the bottom. So when it's there, at 3 or 4 on the side of that smelt, and you can see it's gone absolutely bright red. I tend to, when I do them at home, I lie out a piece of cardboard, an old piece of old cardboard, and then I'll do one side on all of them. I leave them 5 minutes or so to scent in, and then I flip them over and I do the other sides, and then I put them straight back in the freezer like that, and that's it. And then once they're frozen, I can bag them all up and put them all together then, and that gives a really nice even spread on them as well. So about between 3 and 5 squirts, just so you get a nice even cover of spray on there, and that works perfectly. Okay, so this one's a little bit different. Rather than using the actual spray, what I do, and these are 50ml bottles, I've got the ultra fine needle there. You don't need lots, it's very, very pungent. Just a few mil. And as with all syringes, needles and everything like that, never ever have a bait rested on your knee or anywhere near your body, because it can be absolutely lethal if you've got a syringe and you've got any air or anything like that coming in, okay? So you've got to be ever so careful not to get it in the body, okay? So always work away from yourself, put it inside the fish, just in a couple of places. What you can do, put the needle nice and safe out the way, and then what you can see is it actually oozes the blood, and it kind of dyes it from the inside as well, and it looks very much like a freshly attacked fish, and under the water it is absolutely amazing. It gives out all the amino acids, and then when they visually home in on that as well, they look and then they can see all of the red coming out as well. That can be a real killer, and I found it especially effective on canals as well, where you've got nice clear water. Really, really, really good little edge. So there's one thing to note about the new DNA Amino Bait Sprays. They work differently on different baits, as in they cling differently to the actual different fish, okay? Absolutely fine on the flies and spraying on the small lures, but when it actually comes to the bait, if you get something like a smelt, you could literally spray it on the bank and cast in within 30 seconds, a minute, and it would literally cling, and when you brought it out, it would still smell. If you're going to use it on a mackerel, something which is, or a sardine, something which has got a smoother oily skin, I found it works a lot better if you actually do that the night before, and as long as you want before. You can do it weeks and months if you're going to keep them in the freezer, but it really needs to kind of impregnate the skin, so they've got to be left for a bit of time with some spray on them to really get the full effect of the colour and the actual scent going in. But little rud like that soaks in there absolutely fine. Again, you can hold it down and you can see, if I was on the bank, I'd probably do 2 or 3 of these. I'd let them dry and they'd be good to use within just a few minutes of me actually spraying them. Oily baits, definitely want them to do them before you go fishing. There we go, a fine example of a Somerset Levels pike, caught on a rock hard day with a bait which was absolutely saturated in amino acids on the new DNA Amino Acids Bait Spray. Covered in red. I used the red one and I put the clear on as well. I just wanted to give out as much scent as I possibly could, knowing that it was such coloured water. What a perfect way to end the day. Let's slip her back.